What is going on, guys? And today we are back and we're mixing it up with someone, if you have been around in the mix games the last 5 to 6 years, really doesn't need too much introduction. We are with Mr. Kevin Gerhart. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
Great. Happy to be here. Happy to promote some more mixed games.
Yeah, I'm super happy you're here. Again, we're gonna jump in. You have been not only winning bracelets and cashing in every sort of World Series mix game there is, but you've also been doing a lot of announcing as of late for Poker Go and on the, let's say, the mix games and for PLO too. So we'll get into that and some of the questions a little bit later with respect to what's going on and how you like that and how you're doing. Let's give you the quick bio real fast. You just have under 1.5 million in tournament earnings, 4 WSOP bracelets, all in 4 different games, which is quite impressive. PLO 8, PLO, Raz, and you won the 10K horse championship. That is on my bucket list if I ever had to pick one. You have 7 WSOP official final tables. I think you had a couple bubbles in there as well. But I want to get into that later because obviously, when you make 7 official final tables and you win 4, it's pretty good at sealing the deal. So we'll jump into that. You have 1 circuit ring in PLO. You have 52 WSOP caches, 18 circuit caches, and again, you have started announcing, or I'm sorry, you've been announcing on PokerGo now, doing the mixed tournaments and the PLO tournaments. But for people who aren't familiar with you, can you give your 1 minute bio and then we'll kind of go from there?
I
Or poker
started
bio,
playing
sorry.
poker back in the moneymaker days, with my friends in school. We would just play $5 tournaments on the kitchen table. And then when I got into high school, I joined the tennis team, and the guys on the tennis team were older than I was, but they liked playing a little higher stakes. So we would play my friend's basement every Friday night, and I would bring home like $100 in winnings when I didn't know anything about the game of poker. And then I kind of let poker slip by the wayside. I went to college, finished college, and then I just played at the casino every single day after work. So I would go to work, go to the casino, come home, just be exhausted, go into work today and do it all over. And then eventually one of them had to give, and I felt like I had a real shot at making poker a career profession for me.
Yeah, that's when I started playing, I started playing. I haven't really told my story too much, but I started playing in middle school with some friends in small games, and then one of my friends in high school had a guest house. His parents had a guest house, and we would play games on the weekend there just for fun. And I never really thought of it as a profession. I never really thought like I could play professionally, but I think I think you're just slightly younger than me. But in the Moneymaker days when they were showing it on TV. I think the year he won was '02. Is that correct? '01, '02, something like that.
Somewhere in that
Or,
area.
yeah, I think I was just graduating high school, but still, like, I didn't think realistically of of being a professional. And then it's kind of interesting that you like, oh yeah, I could do this professionally, but I didn't really think about it until I actually started playing more and more and more, and then realized like, oh, I guess like this is actually possible. Kind of like seeing what's out there because it just wasn't like exposed, I guess, as of yet. The online days hadn't taken off yet. So, but yeah, but that's cool. So you did it, you jumped into it, and I believe you're from Cleveland, and then
Yep.
you made it out to Vegas. So how'd you make it out to Vegas?
Well, one year my company that I was working for as an engineer um didn't pay us the bonuses that we were expecting.
Okay.
They had a down year, and I kind of felt like that was just the nail in the coffin. I was still young, I came out here when I was 24 and decided that if I didn't make it here as a poker player, I could work in the industry. I could be a dealer, I could do engineering, I could do whatever else. But I had a little bit of money saved up, so I came out here and just I just loaded up my car, brought my brother, and I didn't have a place to stay or anything. And we went apartment shopping. One of the first things that we did when we got here, and I just decided that I was young enough, I was smart enough, and I'd always been a huge fan of games and have grown to love poker that I would do whatever it took to make it as a profession.
Yeah. Okay. What was the first game you started with No Limit Hold'em then?
Yeah, I
Okay.
started playing the 1-2 no limit hold'em at the casino.
Okay. So what got you into the mixed games? Because obviously now, like, you play in, I think, a consistent game at Resorts World.
Right.
You have obviously four bracelets in four different events. What got you into the mixed games versus like playing consistently No Limit Hold'em?
So you say you ever hear the saying never meet your heroes?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I've had the exact opposite experience.
Interesting. Okay.
So when I first started playing poker, I wanted to read and learn and watch everything I possibly could because I'm like one of the most competitive people. I played Magic the Gathering on the highest levels growing up before poker, and I just needed to have the study material. I needed to watch everything, and I found this YouTube video series by Jason Somerville.
Okay.
And I watched every single thing that he did, and he started off playing in mixed games. And that was my first like introduction into mixed games. And then I went to Run It Up Reno 4 different times, hosted by Jason, and just became friends with him. And even back in those days when I was playing the like $400 tournaments, I would sell Jason my action.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jason's been buying my action for over a decade now and has just become one of my really good friends. And if there's one person in the poker industry that could take all the credit for my success for me being here other than myself, it has to be Jason.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah, that quote, it's really interesting. So the whole like you never want to meet your heroes kind of thing, and I've had some experiences both ways too. Um, so yeah, that's really cool that you've kind of like gone the opposite way with respect to it, and it's really helped out your career. So
Yeah, exactly. He's just awesome. I mean, he's kind of stepped by the wayside in terms of poker,
mhm.
but he lives in Vegas. We're still friends. I'm friends with the whole like group that kind of still hangs out together, and my life has just become poker, and I have no one to thank more than Jason.
Well, that's really cool. And speaking now, like your life is poker. One thing I mentioned earlier is was like now you're doing a lot of announcing for the most part for Poker Go. Watching that and a lot of high level play, the mixed games, the PLO. What have you learned kind of watching that maybe you didn't know or learn from before?
It's really interesting that you bring that up. There's so many different little nuances that you can learn from playing these games. Obviously, we have a high level understanding of the basics of the game, but there's just little nuances that certain players do. You know, you see Yuri limping in a lot of stud games where people wouldn't. You see um, different strategies when it comes to like triple draw. Like Benny Glauser plays a different game than what's standard, and every time you see these players and you just have to note that's how they're deviating from the norm. And obviously I would watch every minute of every tournament anyways, so being the one to do the commentary and put my perspective on it just feels like it's really a blessing. I was like right place right time a couple of years ago when I first started doing the commentary. Donnie and Remco actually drafted me for their 25K fantasy
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah.
So they were doing commentary with no hole cards for the 50K. And they asked, or I kind of pushed myself in there and said, hey, you know, do you guys want someone else in the booth with you? Someone that kind of understands these games on a more sophisticated level. And that's where our friendship kind of started. And then over the last couple years, they've actually had me on to do over 200 hours worth of commentary now, all available on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, I can't stress this enough, and I've said this about the 100K a bunch of times in some of my streaming videos, and now like going back and watching some of the prelims for the mixed games and some of the PLO stuff. Anything that you do, I highly recommend that anyone go back again, learning the mixed games, or even if you're at somewhat of a high level, go back and listen to the commentary. It's just going to give you a better understanding. There's two things I wanted to mention. The first one is like how you kind of like got into the booth with respect to like you're doing the 50K is like, hey, you guys want anyone doing commentary. The one time I was able to do the commentary for the 10K 08, I did it with Norman Chad and Ali. And I just straight up asked Norman Chad, he was at my study table. I'm like, hey, I want to do the commentary. Can you get me in the booth?
Yeah,
And sure enough, like the
yeah.
next day, they put me in the booth. And sometimes, if you do put it out there in the universe, like things like that happen. The second thing with respect to what you're saying is that, like, Benny plays a different, like, deuce to seven triple draw game. And when I interviewed Chris Fitch, one thing that I had actually mentioned to Chris is like, a lot of times if you know who the really good players are, and if you see them doing something different, take note of it and don't assume that they're wrong. You know, use like the beginner's mind and say like, hey, they might know something different than I do, and this might be a tournament situation I'm not familiar with. Go back and try to check it and look it up and do the work or do the math at a different point to see what they're doing. Because I think again, it's so easy in the moment to just say like, oh wow, they just made a huge mistake. And really, like you got to think these players probably are working harder than most other players out there, trying to
Exactly.
refine their craft and earn every single dollar they can at the table. So always have that beginning mindset at the table. I think that's super important. Yeah, I like that. I like that observation there too. Um, one thing also with respect to the mixed game tournaments, also during the summer one thing that I am really, really happy about in a lot of different ways, unfortunately, I'm not out there for 2 months anymore, is the progression of like the development of mixed games. Not only obviously at the World Series, but everywhere you go now, you can find almost something between a $200 or $1,000 mixed game tournament somewhere on the strip every single day.
Right.
So I'm just curious, like your no your normal World Series routine. Like obviously, you're probably looking at the World Series schedule. Like I'm probably
Yeah.
planning on playing this one. Do you play any of the other events like on the different casinos, like outside for the most part? If there's those under the summer.
Not during the series, but before the series, the Planet Hollywood, the Chainsaw series is happening. So I'll probably play a couple of those events. Those are like $600 buy-ins. And then the week before the series starts, the Win has a bunch of $1,100 buy-in
Yep.
mixed games.
Yeah.
So those are like the prelims that I'll play. But I try to play all day, every day at the series. Once you get a couple bracelets, or I mean, once you get your first bracelet, you want your second one, and then you want another one, and then you want another one, and it's just like I need to continue on this journey that I set up for myself because this is what I really think poker comes down to is doing exactly what you love, and I just love poker tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I also give like people some advice too in general when like if they find something that they really like and they want to really like narrow their focus down on that, go do it. If you really like poker tournaments, go play. Now, one other thing too is like I haven't really asked this to too many of the players I've had on here so far. Um, I think I asked it to Tom Schneider, but I know Tom will bust a tournament. He'll go play cash games. Chris used to bust a tournament, go play cash games, but now he's kind of focused on the tournaments.
Right.
And Eric, for the most part, he's just straight like tournament focused. Now you, I think, play a fair not you play a bunch of tournaments and you play a fair bit of cash games. So if you
Yeah.
bust a tournament, are you just during the World Series, are you just like focused, like I'm gonna get some rest, or you're just like, ah, no, there's probably good cash games going somewhere. I'm gonna
No, there's always a good cash game going.
there's always a good cash game going. So
So it's literally 12 hours a day for 6 weeks straight.
yeah,
Every day, no breaks. Like if there's not a tournament going, or if I bust a tournament, I'm playing cash games. And it's probably not good for my overall mental health, physical health, whatever, but it's what I need to do during the summer. And my girlfriend understands that and she knows that she won't see me for the entirety of that time frame.
yeah, it's there's just so much good action going on. I think if you haven't been out to the series pre-COVID, um, you should definitely look at the schedules nowadays to see how many tournaments are going on. There is something going on almost every single hour of every single day somewhere on the strip. You can go find like a tournament at noon, 1, 2, 3, 4, like all the way till 11 o'clock at night, kind of thing.
Yep.
It's crazy how much action's going on during the summer now. Um, I just want to shift just a little bit here because obviously one thing that we mentioned in your bio is that you have made 7 WSOP final tables and you've won 4 bracelets. Obviously, for the most part, like official final tables, and some of them are six-handed. Most of them, I would say, are somewhere between 8 and 9. But
Right.
you've closed the deal in more than half of them. So
Yeah,
how
I won the first 4 of 5.
you won the first 4 of 5? Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. I was looking at the I think the 3K horse. You also made 2 final tables, but you didn't win that one. So
Right.
okay, so yeah, so how I mean, like what was your mindset going in and basically saying like, okay, I got this the first time and then the second, third, fourth do you just is it just basically for you luck? I mean, do you just have that experience now over the players? Do you just feel like I have just I know what to do now and just go in and play as hard as I can. I'm curious what your takeaway was going in, because obviously you just closed the deal so many times early on.
Right. So the Raz tournament was the first one.
Mhm.
I feel like that was mostly luck. I knocked out every player at the final table except for one. Right.
Okay.
It,
Yeah, right.
if I won the tournament by making number three,
Okay.
heads up. Like, okay. That's like how else are you gonna quantify that?
Yeah.
Obviously getting there playing 3 days of poker
Mhm.
is is very difficult and there's a bunch of skill in getting there. But when the stacks get shorter and people are just kind of forced all in, you got to win your coin flip situations, right? And I feel like that's how I won the first one. The PLO one was the second one, and I feel like I played that one incredibly well, especially the heads up match. The third one was the 10K horse, which was streamed. And if you go back and watch that, I think anyone in my seat could have won the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was up against just some incredible players throughout the entirety of the tournament. If you look at the last two tables, the amount of like bracelets and just accomplishments of everyone in left in that tournament was incredible. And being able to come out on top of that was just the best feeling imaginable. And then the next tournament I entered was the PLO8 tournament. And I won that one too. And I took
I didn't know it was back to back. That's
Yeah,
how.
it was insane back to back, like week and then week, and it was yeah, it was crazy.
Well, and
That
goes
I
go.
was actually I entered the PLOA tournament on my birthday
Okay.
because it was held in the fall instead of in the summer.
Oh yeah.
And that tournament I can verifiably say was mostly skill and experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I've played a lot of PLO8 in my day, and um, not only is the game like a lot of fun, but yeah, there's a lot of skill that I think a lot of people don't understand involved when they don't like play it at such a high level. So yes,
Right. I
um,
think that's one of the highest skill gap mixed tournaments that there is.
I 100% agree. Actually, one of the I think I was talking to um Eric after our interview, and one of the things I said is, I was talking to Chris, and Chris in the interview basically saying like, sometimes he didn't want to just like rush into the tournament. He's okay late regging, and I think that's like totally fine in limit tournaments for the most part. But there's a couple tournaments that you just want to pinpoint, be on time, because there's a
Exactly.
lot of punting going on. And I tell you what, those PLO8, Big O's, mixed Omaha, stuff like that, those are the ones where you just find, I feel like still like the catastrophic errors early on. And yeah, those are the ones I wouldn't miss early on. But
Okay, so I have a trick question for you. You know, I said I won the first 4 or 5 tournaments,
Mhm,
final tables that I made.
mhm.
What was the format of the fifth final table?
Of the fifth final table, um, uh,
It's
well,
a
so
trick
you
question.
went for, okay. Uh, I don't know.
It's not a mixed game.
Okay.
It's no limit hold'em.
Oh, it was the bracelet winners, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. It was a bracelet winners one. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've made a no limit hold'em bracelet final table.
Yeah. It's very it's just rare. I would feel like, a lot of the people for the most part who are extremely well rounded nowadays in every mixed game, and have no limit final tables. But they're few and far between for the most part too. So yeah, like it's awesome to kind of like go back and see your history, and not only see like, what is it like now, 70 caches in World Series and circuit events, but just different events. And
Right.
you just don't see it as that much. You usually see like a lot of no limit, maybe like some PLO mixed in, or mixed games in general. Because I don't think I have a single no limit cache in like anything. I mean, that's all I played. All I played through high school, my early 20s, like a lot of the Sunday majors for the most part, I used to play all no limit hold'em, but I don't have a single World Series no limit cache. Like I just didn't really play that many ever at all. So that's really
Before I
cool.
really jumped into mixed games, I was a no limit tournament grinder, like the low stakes, like played the monster stack every year. I won a $600 tournament at the Win, no limit
I
hold'em.
I
So like
saw that. I saw that when I was like for
70,000.
70,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, that's another good question to bring up now, because like obviously you have a fair bit of no limit hold'em background. Like how much does it help you now, and like how much, obviously too, you have a fair bit of PLO background, a fair bit
Right.
of PLO experience. How much does that help you in like the 8 game, the 10 game, the PPC, anything like that for the most part?
Um, I think it's huge because a lot of the mixed game players really focus on, say, like the stud variants. Whereas if you have experience in everything and you're more confident, then you'll be able to play your A game in every single game, which just gives you such a huge edge on the rest of the field. You know, it's so easy to just pick up extra blinds and antes when people just fold unless they have aces in Nolan and Hold'em, right? And I think the PLO in the mixed games is great for me because I've really been studying and focusing on PLO tournaments, and I play a lot of PLO cash online
Mm.
when I'm not playing mixed games. So it really does give me a bigger edge in these fields.
Yeah. It's yeah, I just I can't understate like and not only that, but it's nowadays it's just so difficult. You have to be a well-rounded player to play these type of things because not only are there so many tools, but the amount of study that a lot of your opponents are putting in to give themselves like the biggest edge they have, it's huge. So yeah,
Right.
so for sure, like obviously like having a big bet background, I'm sure is definitely that helps you. All right, so going into the World Series a little bit, what does your daily routine look like for the most part? How do you start it? How do you try to finish it? Obviously, I know you try to finish with a bracelet or bagging chips, but
Yeah.
what is the typical like morning start of the day look like for you?
Morning is basically the same. Get up, shower, brush my teeth. Um, Make sure I have everything ready in my bag that I need for the rest of the day. I normally bring at least a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. That's normally like my snack time meal, and then I have little like almonds or fruit bars or whatever in my bag as well. Um, my day always starts with music.
Okay. Okay.
That's one thing that always gets me in the zone. There are two things that I've learned about myself in the past to avoid when it comes to playing these tournaments all day, every day, because it just is such a detriment to how I get to play the game. Number one is talking too much with people at the table. Yes, I'm a nice, friendly guy. I love talking about poker and mixed games. I've actually had people come up to me and want to take a picture with me. I mean, I don't think I'm that big a deal yet, but it was nice. But I love just putting my headphones in and not spending the mental energy of talking with people while I'm trying to maintain maximum focus for 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the second thing is never eat a full dinner on dinner break.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It
Yeah.
gives you just it makes you like lethargic after when you come back.
For
I
sure.
feel like it makes you lose focus. You should just be snacking throughout the day instead of just when they give you a dinner break, just go and eat a full meal. No, don't do that. Make sure you eat throughout the day and then have your one big meal after the poker tournaments.
Okay, that's fair.
Um, and one thing I've been doing over the last couple of years was win or lose, the day needs to end with a decompression at the gym.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So you're going at like 2, 3 in the morning kind of thing, and you're
Yes.
still going. Oh,
Right.
interesting.
Go to the gym. It's so therapeutic to
Mhm.
just sit there, on the elliptical or the exercise bike, or when you're working out on the machines or free weights or whatever. Just let your mind go and focus on what you're doing, and not let poker influence you for the hour that you're at the gym.
Yeah. I, I always found, I think I said this last time, I think I always used to stay when when I first started going out there, I would stay at the casinos. And then I think the last like 10 years, I would get something like a rental house or something away from the strip.
Right.
And for me, it was always the drive because I always was like 20 minutes away. I wanted to just like decompress a little bit. And for me, that drive was always super important. But yeah, like if you can do that and go to the gym, like kudos to you because, uh, I don't I could never do that late at night and decompress like that. So yeah, like um I think that's also one thing to notice too. Back in the day, like players were never doing this. You know, players were never like they would end it like go to the gym and all right, how do I'm going to start my focus again the next day and do the same routine and be in the best mindset that I can and making sure like I'm not lethargic by eating big meals at the dinner break, etc. Um So yeah, I mean, like there's strategy involved all around. And again, this is one of the reasons I started this whole like interview series basically is like what are players doing differently versus, your typical thought of like, all right, I'm gonna make dinner break, I'm gonna go have fun with some friends, eat a big dinner, and then go back. And it's been very enlightening, I feel like, to hear a lot of the different strategies that like I never would have thought of for the most part. Um,
And one thing I used to do a lot of was try to find my friends and talk about hand strategies on breaks. But I've realized that you should just write them down
yeah.
and use your breaks to not think about poker. You should really just stay in the zone and not worry about hands that happened, even if you're getting good information. You should just write them down and review them at a later time.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. Yeah, I've there's too many times I've been caught like stuck in a hand and just been in a time when you need to really mentally recover. I've just I can't let it go. Like I just can't let a hand go, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice for sure. Um, and you've given me a lot of like little nuggets so far, but what are like one or two things that you think has made you so successful like over this time frame now, playing these tournaments where a lot of people might have different strategies. Curious.
You really have to eat, sleep, drink, everything poker. Like
Mhm.
that's been my entire life for basically the past decade. Is I consume content, I truly study it. I watch every single mix thing that's ever put out. I watch all the PLO stuff that's ever put out. I'm starting to watch more of the no limit stuff.
Mhm.
There's just so much free information
Yeah.
out there
Yeah.
that if you aren't studying and working harder than everyone else, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
And it's not like I just go into play the Resorts World mix and I go through the motions. I watch everything that goes on. I watch how everyone plays every hand. I make little mental notes on every person and what their tendencies are, right? You find the people that have no bluffs ever,
Yeah.
and you save so many bets over the course of a couple of years of playing with them. Um, and you try to teach them like, hey, your image looks like this. If you bet here, you just win
Yeah.
most of the time, and they just refuse to ever bluff. So it really comes down to 100% focus at all times throughout the entire year of just poker. And I think that gives me the edge on everyone else because I'm not getting the online repetitions that the Europeans get, right?
Mhm.
I'm not getting millions of hands, but I'm doing everything else in my power to just immerse myself in the world of poker um, at every opportunity. Given the commentary, I would watch all of these tournament final tables anyways, but being in the booth, forces me to become the teacher,
All
right?
right.
You always get better at something when you have to teach it to someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. I remember my first student probably 10 years ago, something like that. I think Chris actually passed him on to me and said like, hey, someone's looking to learn '08. Can you work with him? I'm like, yeah, sure. And one of the things that really opened my eyes was, and especially if you have a good student, the good student is asking really good questions,
Right.
and you need to find or really quickly learn the answers if you don't
Yes,
know. So
exactly.
that was a big moment for me is when I learned, oh, I thought I knew everything, and now I'm getting questions I don't know the answers to. And I'm like, okay, well, if I don't know this one, I can definitely figure it out. It just, I'll get back to you at a different time. But yeah, there's just so much to learn out there. And going back to what you said about the free information now, I mean, what PokerGo is putting out with respect to content on YouTube. Um, yeah, I mean, you're 100%, you're not falling behind if you're not consuming it too. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
free
it's
information.
absolutely amazing. And like you've said in the past, the 100K where they did
Mhm.
the 3 days of coverage, not just the final table, that information is so invaluable. Like it's absolutely amazing what they put out for free to the general public, and you just watch it and you can learn so much from actually watching, taking notes, and understanding what these players are thinking at all times.
Yeah, and like I told when I was talking to Chris, I thought that the first day it looked more like a cash game. because then it's like they're so deep stacked. It's like, okay, how will these guys play cash games and what are they doing?
Exactly. And that's what I want to see. I want to see how these players play cash games.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch a PLO final table when everyone has 20 big blinds. I want to watch Sean Winter and Dylan Weissman battle it out 200 big blinds deep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. And then like on day two of the mixed game tournament, like you actually see what's going through their head in some of these like short stack spots, like the ICMs actually might start to matter a little bit.
Right.
Where, it like obviously it didn't matter on day one. So yeah, it's just it's so cool to see like what they put out and the different variants and all that free information. Um Like, if do you ever are there ever like points where you just need to clear your head when you're playing? Are you just like I'm just going through like I'm disciplined at this point. I've trained my body, I've trained my mind. I'm just gonna keep going and going. Or do you say like, you know what, I need a break today. Like I need to just clear my head. Does that happen for you at the series, or you're just like I'm just going?
I just go.
You're a machine. Okay.
I have trained myself over years of getting punished or bad beat or whatever. I got one outed yesterday on the river, and I was like, okay, well, this happens. So I really do keep going. And you could ask anyone that I normally play with. I never tilt. I never complain.
Mhm.
I just once you start getting into that losing mindset, that's when you really start losing at poker.
Yeah.
So I truly understand. You can see by my results that I was on the right side of variance at the right time in my poker career.
Yeah.
That nothing else matters, right? Everything else that happens after that is just variance catching up with me and making it even.
Yeah.
I've done the work. I have the skills. I've gotten lucky in the right spots. That all comes from preparation, but you can't fall victim to variance, especially in poker and especially in poker tournaments.
Yeah. I also I think you make a really good point there too. That if you fall victim to the variance and yeah, I don't want to say that we're necessarily machines by any means, but when you do fall victim to it and those days you like need to clear your heads, you miss good cash games, you miss good tournaments.
Yeah,
You miss out on those things too. So
I have a side story, an anecdote for that.
sure, sure.
So back when I did kind of tilt and get frustrated back in 2019, I remember busting day two of the monster stack, and it was like a pretty bad beat. And I was so frustrated that I was walking out to my car and I was texting my group chat, wow, I can't believe that happened. I'm so unlucky. Before I kind of developed this mindset of it's okay. And one of my friends was like, hey, didn't the 1500 RAS start? And I go, I've never played the 1500 RAS before.
Huh.
And he goes, yeah, but you're good at that game, right? I go, yeah, I've done some research. I've studied it. I played it in all the horse tournaments. I'm pretty good at the horse mix.
Yeah, right.
He goes, get in there. I'll take whatever action you need to sell. Go play that tournament. I got back in there and that was my first bracelet.
Well, if you ever need motivational text to sell pieces during the summer from here on out, I will
Right.
be there. I will be on call at any point. But yeah, that's an amazing story. Yeah, you're making some really good points with respect to that because I've definitely been the one in the past been like, you know what, I need to take a day to go play golf. And I'm not saying for what it's worth, I'm not saying to anyone listening out there that you don't take days off because if you know that you mentally cannot handle it, like if you've trained yourself years and years and years to do it, that's a totally different story. But if you know for a fact that you're going to play better if you take a day off, go play around a golf, go work out, go hike a mountain, go do something like that to clear your head. By far, it's in a way it's better. But yeah, like if you have the ability to do it during the summer, like there's just so many good spots that you definitely want to put yourself in as many as you can. But that's a cool story. I mean, like you hear random stories like this in the poker world all the time, and it's just what makes them like so cool.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Every every little thing you do has a butterfly effect on the rest of your life. So
yeah,
every little decision that you make, me walking back in after even calling my girlfriend and saying, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" I'm literally at my car right now, and my friends are like,
that's a good
"Get
story.
in there, play this tournament."
Yeah.
just leads to
Good friends.
so many awesome things. I mean, hopefully this year I'll do a lot more commentary. My focus is going to be tournaments and then commentary and then cash games.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, if you ever just like get stuck in the tournament, you can always pass them on to me to do an Omaha final table.
Okay.
I'll let them know.
Yep.
Okay, if a recreational player is going out and they want to just go have some fun, what advice would you give to them?
Make sure you have a bankroll of money that you're okay losing and play exactly what you want to play. Don't
Mm,
don't join a cash game just because it's there. You know, if you really love Omaha 8, make sure that's the tournament that you're playing. If you really love No Limit Hold'em, play the bigger field No Limit Hold'em events, right? Play the Millionaire Maker, play the Monster Stack. Um, Make sure that you know what you can handle mentally and physically, uh, and be prepared to push yourself beyond those limits
yeah.
because it's going to be a brutal grind for however long you're out there. You're not going to want to stay the entire time as a recreational, but just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're having fun doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's two things I want to add. The first one is um there's so many like we said, there's so many tournaments going on. Go find the tournaments that you want to play. You don't have to go play a tournament that you're like, is four times or five times as big as you're used to playing. Um, just because it's like a World Series event. Like if you want to go play a World Series event, make sure like you can lose it. But at the same time too, there's so much going on everywhere along the strip that you can find something that you want to play and have fun. The second thing I wanted to say is again, you were talking about like know what your limits are and know that you're going to be pushed beyond those limits too. Also because like a lot of the players you're playing against, they're training themselves to push themselves farther, and a lot of the pros you're playing against for the most part are used to being pushed farther than you're used to being. So you're going to kind of get on those awkward situations too. But just mentally, focus as much as you can, mentally be prepared as much as you can, and I always tell people beforehand like my goal going into the series was never to be the most like physically fit. I just wanted to have the best cardio of anyone. I wanted to make sure like those 12-hour days or whatever it was from start to finish playing like is as fresh as my mind could possibly be. I wanted to make sure that I had been running, I had been swimming, I had been doing whatever it took, yoga. I do a ton of yoga kind of thing. But I just wanted to make sure that, my mind was stayed as fresh as it possibly could. And sometimes that means practicing those sessions, those long sessions ahead of time too. So yeah, it's just kind of what it is. A lot of these tournaments nowadays, you sign up at 12 and you're not done till 2 a.m. So it's just kind of the way it is.
Right.
All right, one thing we were talking about before we turned the camera on is um, when when your stack gets short. Obviously, I've asked this to pretty much every player. Um, when your stack gets short in the mixed games, and it feels like you're on, like the little nub as they call it, or you're on like dust at this point, how do you keep mentally strong in those moments and basically saying like, I just want to bust this and go play the next one? Like how do you like basically stay strong in that moment, basically say, all right, I'm going to fight for these last chips until they come get me and knock me out of this thing?
Right. Yeah. Especially in mixed games, you're never out of the tournament until you have zero chips. You're never really at a point where you need to gamble and be all in. Um, there was a spot in that 1500 Raz where I raised off a short stack. We saw Fifth Street, and I had to make a decision there. Do I fold and leave myself with half of a big bet, or do I stick it in with, I don't know, 15%, 20% equity? And I decided to fold.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran that half of a big bet up to every chip in the tournament.
Yeah.
You're never out of the tournament until you have exactly zero chips.
Yeah. Is there
Find
some,
those
go ahead.
find those folds, play your A game, and just play the poker that you know you should be playing. Don't get emotional and just say, okay, well, I'm gonna gamble here. Hopefully, I win. Play the game where you are setting yourself up for a winning strategy.
Yeah. I want to also pick your brain just a second because of the antes, like, does it make a significant difference too? Like, uh, because there's antes in the stud games at that point, and you can, win the antes at that point and build your stack up uh, to a big moment. Like, it's like if you make the right decision, you leave yourself half a big bet, you can still fight over the antes in the next stud pot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and I know I think a lot of people too. It's just so easy to flip the chips in. It's so I mean, honestly, that might be one of the if you want to talk about being mentally tough in poker tournaments, when you get down to your little stack and you might not be getting the right price, or this person doesn't bluff enough, or something that basically says is like, these are all the chips I have left. It is so easy to flip them in and then go to the next tournament. But
Right.
I can't remember if it was Chris or Eric who said basically like, look, you know, when you have chips, like obviously deep in this tournament, it's worth infinitely more than when you started the tournament, like, yesterday or the day before or whatever it was.
Exactly.
So like fighting over this has a lot of value to you, and like not giving up. And I talked about it with I think it was Eric or Chris or everyone. It's just like there are so many stories about the half a big bet or the big blind or the one chip or something like that, and we've all experienced it. If you've been around poker for forever, you have your own story with it. So yeah, like giving up in those situations, is just in its own right. It's so valuable and it's worth so much too. So,
Right.
but that's cool. I didn't know you were down to half of a big bet in the game and ran it up. So,
Yeah, I have a lot of stories where I can pinpoint particular hands
mm,
that led me to either winning a tournament or making a super deep run. One was actually against Eric in that $600 tournament that I won.
mm,
We were down to two tables and I open aces on the button and he jams like 25 big blinds in the big blind with deuces.
mm.
And I call and win and go on to win the tournament. And it's a lot of it was because I had such a big chip lead with his extra chips.
Yeah, I'll make sure to tag him on the post and say thank you for
I'm sure he doesn't
sharing.
remember that hand whatsoever, but it sticks with me and I'll remember that. There's just like certain hands. The 10K horse, I brought it in with a 5 in stud high. Benny, this is my favorite Scott Seaver story. Can I tell my favorite Scott Seaver?
Yeah, of course, for sure.
Okay, so we're playing the 10K horse deep late day 2, and I bring it in with a 5 in stud, and Benny completes and Seaver calls, and I call and I split fives. And we go to 4th Street, one bet each. We go to 5th Street. I catch another 5.
Mhm.
I check. Benny bets. At this exact moment, there's a drunk guy on the rail behind us screaming, "Oh my God, you're Scott Seaver. I know you. Can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph?" And he's just like screaming this. And Scott kind of stops playing the hand, and Benny looks up and he goes, "Security, can we get this guy out of here?"
Oh, did Benny say that or did Scott?
Benny said
Okay,
that.
Benny said that. All right.
So you can see that Scott is kind of frustrated at this moment. So Scott calls, I raise.
Mhm.
Okay. Benny calls and Scott just like kind of looks around and he sees security coming up and security's gonna escort this guy away because he's being drunk and an idiot. And Scott just looks at the security guy dead in the face and goes, "He's with me." Because Scott learned that Benny shouldn't have bet here. And this guy is mentally taxing Benny in this hand. So to punish Benny, Scott goes, "He's with me," to the security guard to keep the drunk guy on the rail. And I end up winning that hand. And then we go into the Raz round after stud, and I scoop like two massive pots. And I go from being this little short stack where I more than tripled up in that stud hand to like second place to end the day.
That's a good story. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I got nothing else to add that one. That was a good one. I don't have a donut. I
There's
don't.
so many little anecdotes that I've picked up over the last couple years that just make for really good stories. If people are interested in like poker stories.
Yeah. Actually, I still have Tom's book here, from years ago, and mostly like no one's really familiar with it for the most part. It was kind of an obscure final book, obscure small book when it first came out. But one thing I love about it is it's the stories. it's the stories he tell and things like that. Like the reaction you just got out of me by telling that story. I mean, it's just priceless. We can't get away from that stuff. So yeah, like I always say to people, like, when you got good stories like that, write them down. People want to hear the stories.
Yeah,
They don't need to know like what kind of equity you had. They want to hear the stories like that. You know. So genius. That's so good. Actually, I got a funny anecdote too because it's kind of like on the same thing. I met my wife playing kickball, and one year we were playing like in the playoffs. We're getting ready for the playoffs, and this one team was they would always like harass us. The guy was running the league, and what we did to really throw their team off is we hired a mariachi band to basically play whenever they went up to the plate. And if they
nice,
got knocked out in the first round, they just couldn't deal with it anymore. But
nice.
yeah, it's just it's just like the little stories like that that just
I met
make
my
life so much
girlfriend in
better.
volleyball class in college.
Good for you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like yeah, that's awesome. So, all right, one thing I wanted to just mention or say is, there's obviously like with respect to mixed games and PLO, we were kind of like talking offline beforehand about like ICM. Um, anything you want to like throw in there for the most part, because like obviously we're talking about like not giving up in the mixed games and how much it's worth, but a lot of times in like Omaha, equities just run so close. Um, it's I feel like it's a different beast.
Right. Yeah. So in PLO, ICM basically is it dictates folding to making more money.
Hmm.
Right. So it just depends if you think that your skill edge is enough for you to win the tournament, that it justifies putting in chips when ICM says that you should wait out. And if you make money just by folding, that's much greater than the chance of you losing all your chips. Uh, you have to determine for yourself if the money is worth folding or if you want to go for the win. And when I am at the final table for a lot of these tournaments, I tend to not shy away from aggression.
Sure, yeah.
I tend to be the person that's trying to win all of the chips instead of folding and laddering up pay jumps just to make more money. So whatever you feel comfortable with when you're in these ICM situations, it's probably right, but ICM is very powerful in making more money.
Okay. Yeah, I also think too a lot of times like what was I going to say with respect to if you're like inexperienced in a lot of these situations too, um just know like sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Just try to shy away from like the catastrophic mistake. Like at some point you got to get your chips in and I understand that, but
Right.
a lot of things again goes back to the work. Have you done a lot of the work to the point where you know kind of like what's going on? And I always say to people like, make small mistakes, it's okay. Just don't make the catastrophic one.
Sure.
Because those are the big ones that cost you the most money by far.
Right. I think that there's no such thing as a catastrophic mistake. In the moment, with all of the information that you have
Sure, yeah.
during a hand, if you truly believe that you are making the correct play
Mm,
with incomplete information, that's all that matters in that exact situation. Okay, I went all in. I had queens and my opponent had aces.
sure.
Okay, like it's not like a catastrophic mistake. It's not something you can avoid. You had all the information that you could use to your benefit to try and determine what you thought was the right outcome in the moment.
Sure.
Lean on that and learn from it. Don't categorize it as a big mistake of, oh, I busted the tournament because I decided that this was the time I was going to bluff. The one time in the tournament that I bluff and my opponent just had it. No, man, this is a learning opportunity and you used every single resource to your advantage in the moment to come up with what you thought was the most profitable play. You need to understand that in the future, you can change your mindset about that. You can change your skill set and you can figure out what to do with the information that you were given in that moment. don't categorize it as a mistake and lament it forever. Use it as a learning experience.
Yeah, I think the way you just classified it probably is a lot better than any way that I could say it. Use it as a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last like general question I have for you is, and I've asked this again to everyone for the most part, is if someone makes their first final table, what piece of advice do you have for them?
Remain calm. Try to keep your heart rate at a normal resting rate. Don't feel just try not to feel the pressure, because anything that affects your mental state will cause you to play differently than what your A game would suggest. Just understand that you put yourself in this opportunity, and trust your instincts, trust your knowledge, and trust your poker skills to continue on in this tournament. Like I said, just use every piece of information that you gained over the last however many hours that you've played, and just be in the moment and be in every single hand. Don't go on autopilot. Pay attention to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good piece of advice. Like I remaining calm, like um if there was just a sign that you could just put up in the background for everyone, just like remain calm is probably uh the most consistent piece of advice I'd say like I'm given in that situation too for most players.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Kevin, let's give you a little bit of rapid fire and then we'll get you out of here. How about that?
Okay.
Favorite mixed game?
PLO tournaments
Okay.
is my favorite format of poker.
PLO or PLO 8 or Big O or just straight PLO.
Straight PLO tournaments.
All right, there you go. All right. Oh, this is one because obviously you've been a regular like cash game player in the Vegas scene. During the series, where are the best places to play low, mid, and high mixed games?
Uh, the low and mid. I would say actually for all three, Resorts World is the right answer.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's where the cash games exist the most during the series. I think you can play the ones at the Horseshoe,
Mhm.
but the rake is much higher,
Okay.
and I don't think the dealers are as good. So the best place to play the mixed games, anywhere from $4, $8 up to 600, 1200, would be at Resorts World during the series.
All right. Well, there you go. There's your answer. Very concise and pretty sweet. Favorite restaurant in Vegas everyone should try once.
Bavette's at Park MGM.
Okay. All right.
It's the best burger I've had in my entire life.
All right. Well, if you ever make it up to Kansas City, I'll have my wife make you one.
Okay.
Well, there's no cows in our backyard for a reason. All right. If you could have one hand back in your poker career, what would it be?
Okay. One year in the main event, I think this was 2 or 3 years ago. There was an open, and I called pocket tens on the button. The
Mhm.
big blind is a very good high stakes player. He squeezed big, and I called, and I ended up calling down for like, I started the hand with almost 150 big blinds, and we were like 400 away from the money.
Mhm.
And I ran into queens because the board ran out like 5-5 deuce 7-9 or something. And I was like, this guy could have so many different hands here, but I wish I just would have found the fold at some point instead of getting stubborn and overthinking the situation.
How
Is
much?
this guy really trying to pick on me specifically because he knows that I'm going to fold, or does he just have a good hand? And they just have the good hand. And that's the one hand I would want back.
Well, okay, that's fair. I also think too, I'm going to push back just a little bit because, like, obviously in the moment, like, given all the information you had, did you think you made the best decision? And that's really all that matters, right?
Yes, exactly. And the answer is yes. But in hindsight, if someone asked me if I could have one hand back, that's the hand I would choose.
Yeah, I actually almost didn't want to ask you that question, kind of like where the progression of the interview has gone, and basically
Right.
saying like, well, I've learned everything to the most part that I can, and like those mistakes now have kind of made me the player that I am. So,
Right.
so I think that's
So,
fair.
yes, in the moment, I didn't hate it. But afterwards, I was just like, man, we had such a good table. Him and I were the two best players at the table. I could pick up chips with other players. And now I've learned that, it's okay to not gamble in spots where there are still players who are less experienced at the table.
Yeah, I think like a really it's something that's really hard to I think like learn because you just want to I mean like in essence like one thing I see a lot on X is every day I see Chance posting and Chance is like basically
Yeah.
I don't want to say this. He's basically your poker guru who is gonna just like give it to you straight like every single time. And basically one of the things he says is like poker's war kind of thing. And obviously you want to get you want to you want to get that other guy's stack if you can for sure, but that is something that you want to also like again going back to like the PLO8 tournament for me is I'm they're just going to give it away. At some point they usually just find a way to give it away. So if
Right.
that's the case, then you don't want to bust yourself that fast,
Right.
you know? So I know where you're coming from and I totally get it. But again, like going back to one of the questions that you asked with respect to, or earlier, your comment with, did you make the right decision given all the information in that moment? And, sometimes you do run tens and a queens on a
Right.
deuce, deuce, 5, 7, 9 board. So,
Yeah.
so be it. Um, any memorable moments in poker? It doesn't have to be poker hands.
Yeah, so I have two that come off the top of my head. Before I moved to Vegas, I played in a $1,500 no limit hold'em tournament in Cleveland,
Hmm.
and it was sponsored by Harley Davidson,
Hmm.
and they added a motorcycle, not to the prize pool, but to a random draw,
Yeah, sure.
and somehow my name got called,
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
and I won a motorcycle, and my mom and my brother were downtown for a show that night that I couldn't make because I was at the final table. And I called my mom and she starts crying when they come up to the casino. And then eventually, Thanksgiving comes around and I'm sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table with my parents, my grandparents, my brothers. And I just go, you know what, Dad, I want you to have the motorcycle.
Yeah, that's
He,
awesome.
he's never ridden a motorcycle before. He's almost 60 at that point.
Yeah.
And what's this going to do? And my mom was not happy at all. She mentioned, divorce or mentioned him hurting himself or whatever. But 10 years later, and he still rides it. And then the second memorable moment is my girlfriend's parents scheduled a trip out to Vegas months in advance for when I was in the series playing all day, every day. And they were just coming out for the weekend. And my girlfriend's mom goes, "We're going to watch Kevin win a tournament when we're out there."
Yeah.
And it just so happened to be the weekend of the 10K horse. So from late day two, when they landed, they came directly to the casino. They watched all of the final table live, and you can see them in the coverage.
That's great. Yeah.
And it was just one of the coolest things of this is what your girlfriend gave up everything life back at home to move across the country
Yeah.
to be with someone who can win at poker.
Yeah. That's pretty special. Those two stories are great. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
it's
I love this game, and I love everything that I've earned from it and everything that I can give back to people from it.
yeah, I think that's one of the best you definitely I've never spoken to you before today and your mentality with respect to this stuff is awesome. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
All right, last two. If I made you emperor of the WSOP, would you change anything?
Yes, for sure. I would want most of the tournament games to be one fewer handed, right? You go
Let's take one player. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want one less player per table for almost every event.
Mhm.
I don't want to play eight-handed stud high. I
Mhm.
don't want to play nine-handed no limit hold'em
Mhm.
or 10-handed, depending on what tournament it is. I want there to be more action and less people incentivized to play tighter.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. And anything that you would like asked to you that I haven't asked yet?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think we've covered a lot today.
Yeah, no, Kevin, I appreciate it. Yeah, you've taught me a lot. I'm gonna go back and re-listen to this because I feel like there's been a lot of cool nuggets in there, and I didn't know what to expect going in, but For sure, I'm happy you picked up my message answer, and I'm super happy I got to interview today. So as always, good luck at the series coming up. Any last pieces of advice for anyone out there watching or listening?
I would highly recommend, just like you said, going back and watching all of the mixed game coverage, all of the tournament coverage that's free on YouTube. I appreciate all messages on X or wherever of, hey, man, good job. Or if you have any constructive criticism, I can work on to do better in the future. I'm always open to that. But all of the messages from everyone that sent me, like, hey, man, really love listening to your commentary. I really do appreciate all that. And if you guys see me during the series, come up and say hi.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Kevin. Good luck. And again, if you need motivational text for the 1500 Raz this year while selling, just let me know. And I'll be at the end of that. All right. Well, take care. And everyone who's watching, as always, good luck at the tables. We'll talk soon. Play well. Bye bye.